It seems like it's been 40 weeks since you got 40 winks. Your back pain? Unbearable. Tossing, turning, trying to find that pain-free position. And that's the moment you realize you can't spend another waking moment putting off treatment.
The Joint and Spine Center is Cincinnati's leading destination for spine care, with a ton of surgical and non-surgical treatments for back pain. So when a moment has the power to change the rest of your life, go to the one place with the power to change it for the better, the Christ Hospital Health Network. This changes everything.
The Pound This Podcast is brought to you by the Christ Hospital Health Network. This is the Pound This Podcast, episode 697, From Engineer to Personal Trainer, How Understanding Nutrition Changed Alli Thul's Life.
I want to lose weight, but I don't know how to get started.
What should I meal prep every week?
How do I get those sweet booty gains?
Inspiration for your healthy lifestyle. The Pound This Podcast with Amanda Valentine.
Thank you so much for listening to the Pound This Podcast. I am Amanda Valentine. My guest today is Alli Thul. Did I say it right?
Yep, you got it.
Yes. Personal trainer. Do you have any other
nutrition
titles?
coach?
Okay.
Yeah, I can't really say too much more. I just want to help people.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited because we have a shared connection that Shay, who's on this podcast all the time, who's here weekly and has been for, oh my God, it's a year and a half now, which is wild, because I met Shannon/Shay right before COVID, and because she was training here at Cincy 360 Fitness, and you know, she does my hair, and then she's just like, well, I know Alli, she's a trainer, she's a badass, you need to have her on the podcast. I'm like, sign me up.
Yeah, Shannon keeps my hair blonde too, so it's it's a nice way to connect.
So we were kind of discussing, your backstory before we started recording here, but you take me back to the beginning of kind of, you're from Cincinnati, how you grew up, and then kind of take me to where you are now being a personal trainer.
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up here. I played soccer from, I think I was like 4 when I started. So I was always kind of that athletic kid. I was always the stronger one too. Mm-hmm. So I was a little bit of the bigger kid in the sense of being an athlete as well. And then I played my way into college and redshirted for a year, and then just decided that.
What's that mean?
So redshirt's when you don't actually play on the field, but you can. It's kind of hard to explain actually. It's basically you don't play any of the first season, so essentially you can keep your 4 years of eligibility as an athlete.
Gotcha.
But I didn't even use them, so I stopped after that because I got a little bit burnt out with the playing aspect of it. And also, I just wanted to travel more when I got to college. It was my first time on my own, and I was like, I want to see the world. So I stopped, and so I could do my internships that came with my program at the time in different places. And so I moved around during college, and in college, it's like nothing ever really changed in terms of me still training and enjoying working out and all of that. But on the same side, nothing really changed with how I ate, even though I didn't have practices every day of the week. And I didn't really think much of it. I didn't know it was something that I even needed to really consider, because I grew up able to do that, and I never really had to think about it. And then by my senior year of school, which was a 5-year program, so 5 years later, I had put on, I think, 40-something pounds. And I remember going into the doctor's office and crying when I saw the number on the scale, because I hadn't really weighed myself in a while. And then I remember asking the doctor specifically about getting some of that weight off, and the only answer that I got was, well, we have this weight loss program that you're going to be eating 800 calories a day.
Ugh.
And I left crying, and I was like, that can't be the only option that I had. And then like I told you, soon after I hired a nutrition coach, and we started kind of approaching my nutrition in the sense that I even just had to think about nutrition and how much protein I need. I actually need to eat more food, and I was also a senior in college, so I was going a little nuts. I mean, I can't say I didn't do that, but I definitely had to take a different approach to it. And with that, I got good results. I lost about 30 of that I put on. And that kind of was the first kind of spark to me getting interested in the coaching aspect. But I was still pursuing my degree, and I got a degree in engineering and got my first job out of college in New York City and moved out there and was chilling, really. Like, I was walking a lot more. It's the city. There's a lot more to walk. My steps were always up, so my weight really didn't change too much. I put on a little bit, but that's kind of to be expected when you move out of college and you don't have one class a day and you have the rest of the day to focus on going to the gym and planning out your meals to the gram. But yeah, everything in New York was great, and then I started to get injured when I was training. And then that's kind of what sparked going back to the idea of, okay, how do I now work out effectively to where I'm starting to mitigate these injuries? And I couldn't figure it out, and I was just started to nosedive basically into listening to podcasts about concussions and podcasts about lifting and all of that. And then after a year in New York, I moved back home just because the city was starting to stress me out a bit too much. And when I got here, I was still just doing the same thing, still learning more. And then my job kind of went a little south, and I decided that I was done with it, and I just was going to make the change. And from there, I had already applied to get my cert because I knew it was something I wanted to at least consider to pursue. Mm-hmm. And once the job kind of blew up, I was like, this is it. This is the time that I'm just going to go full send and kind of transition from there. And then COVID hit. And so it was a little poor timing, but it gave me a lot of time to at least get that base of knowledge down to continue to learn and to be where I'm at now.
Where did you get your certification through?
I got my CPT through NASM as well, just like you. And then I also got it's called an Adaptive and Inclusive Trainer certification. It's through the, I don't know if they've changed their name now, but it's the Adaptive Trainer Academy, I believe. And it's focused a little bit more specifically on working with clients that might have physical and or mental kind of limitations. Okay. Whether that's and actually like not having a leg or having been somewhere on the spectrum in terms of like autism or being wheelchair bound, anything like that. Mm-hmm. And so I really liked that course, and it kind of made me think of fitness in a different way and kind of being accessible. Yeah. And then that kind of just really piqued my interest more. And then I got my precision nutrition certification as well. Because like I said, that nutrition coach for me was a huge catalyst to kind of thinking about it.
Yeah. How did you find that nutrition coach?
Honestly, I don't really remember, to be honest, but I want to say I had followed somebody on Instagram for a while, and they were either a coach or a client, or they were a client that turned coach, and I just kind of looked up what they did and what their company was, and I liked their approach to it. It was a very lifestyle-based approach, and like, how do we make this blend into your lifestyle? And just it seemed like a very, very healthy approach to my food relationship at the time. And I reached out to them, and I think the company was pretty new at the time because I remember emailing with the owner at the time, and then just signed up then. So it was pretty cool. Yeah.
So how do you work with nutrition a lot? Do you have any specific like nutrition clients? I know.
Yes. I so at the beginning of I guess when COVID kind of shut everything down, I actually was all about just going on my own and just trying to start up that way because gyms were closed. Yeah. And so it was like, okay, well, I quit my job. Yeah. I need to make some money somehow, so let's go for it. And so I actually started a business myself, and so I started Helm Strength and Nutrition, and I work with a couple specifically nutrition clients right now. I have a couple like personal training, kind of online distance training, but I definitely like the nutritional side the most. Yeah. And I feel like I can do the most good there, even though like I love strength training and everything. But I like the online nutrition coaching so much just because I feel like I can connect a lot more with the clients that way.
So what does that process look like?
Well, so there's an application process in terms of just I have an application on my Instagram bio that clients or potential clients can fill out, and then I will connect with them via email. We'll figure out which kind of plan that they want, whether they want just like the basic nutrition coaching where we check in once a week. You kind of, if you're at that level, we'll track macros. If not, we'll just kind of work on caloric intake and protein and stuff like that. We start wherever the client needs to be met. And then, you check in once a week. That could be anything from just answering questions and letting me kind of see how you're feeling. Like, are you still hungry? Like, mentally, where are we at? Like, how's your training going? If you are training on the side of this, what's your activity level like? Did you notice anything that messed with your digestion or anything like that? Just stuff to kind of make clients a little bit more aware of how their nutrition is actually affecting them.
Yeah.
But also so that I, as the coach, can go in and be like, okay, maybe we need to make a change, or maybe we need to kind of take a different approach, and let's start by adding in, let's say, a walk. Let's add a 10-minute walk after lunch.
Yeah.
Let's get your activity level up a little bit. It seems like you're being a little sedentary, but that's okay. Like, we'll eventually build to where you want to be. And so I always try and start as basic as I can, and I just want to see consistency, really, with a client. And for some clients, that's immediate if they've got experience with it before or whatever. And some clients, it takes weeks, months. And then once we're there, I like to kind of get us to maintenance. And that's the hardest part to explain to new clients, because oftentimes they come in with these goals and they're like, I want to lose all this weight, or I want to bulk up. And I'm like, well, let's figure out where your maintenance is first, because I don't know, you don't know. I have a rough idea of where it's at, but hey, 2 weeks in, we're still kind of having trouble hitting it consistently. So we have to build up to that maintenance point. We have to stay there for a while, see how our body responds. And then one of my favorite things is when you're at the point where it's like, okay, cool. Hey, now I think you're ready. Let's try going into a deficit if you want. And then a lot of clients are like, oh my God, that's a big deal. It's like, yeah, it's because we built up and we wanted to get you happy. I want your body to be happy first before we kind of shock the system and kind of start this process officially in that sense. But yeah, so like I said, they'll pick a package. It's basically weekly check-ins with a couple phone calls. And then I've been debating adding like kind of recipe workshops.
Okay.
Because I think one of the best gifts I got from my mom was being able to kind of just pick things out of the cabinet and make a meal. Yeah. But also now do it in a more macro-friendly way or lifestyle-friendly way, depending on what the client needs. And so I think it's something that I enjoy. But I've been debating adding that in as an offer too. But yeah, essentially they'll apply. We'll talk about packages. We'll pick one, and then we get started and go into the nutrition work.
Awesome. So what are you doing for your own nutrition now after your experience of kind of learning through all that?
So my own nutrition, kind of like I mentioned, I moved to New York, and at the time I couldn't afford anything. Like, New York's expensive. So I had to stop working with my nutrition coach at the time just to save money. Yeah. And then when I moved back here, I worked with a nutrition coach, and we didn't necessarily vibe the most, which is fine. Sometimes it takes a little while to find a coach that really kind of gets you and gets how you react to certain scenarios. And so then I switched coaches, and now we're really vibing right now, and it's great. And so the last, I don't even know how many months we've been in maintenance and in just kind of maintaining where I'm at, trying to make sure that like everything's feeling great in my training, everything's feeling great in just general life, and coming off of quarantine, like everyone's kind of in a different spot nutritionally, like when you're stuck at home. So I put on a couple pounds, but I actually did the math the other day in terms of like body fat percentage and whatnot, and it was most of it based on the math was actually muscle, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So there was that, but it actually last week or the week before, we've officially kind of entered another deficit. And it's a short one, so it's only for like 4 weeks because we're going to Iceland in August.
Ooh, Iceland's badass. Have you been before?
I've been once. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. That's where you guys can't see it, but the middle tattoo got surrounded in Iceland, so it was pretty cool. But yeah, so we're in a deficit now, just 4 weeks, just to kind of see where we can get during that time and going from there.
I think that's such an important topic that I haven't really touched on a ton, but that coaches have coaches.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not like, and I think that's so important when, because I'm a health coach and I'm a trainer and I have a health coach who, she found her health coach from my podcast and it changed her life and changed her career. And it's like, and I think that when people are just like, no, I have all the answers. And it's just kind of like, everybody could use some help. Or I think that there's just even barrier. And I don't know if you have this with clients for your nutrition or even in personal training, that people just feel like they have to do it all on their own. Like, I can figure this out. Like, I don't need to pay somebody to help me. Of oh my God, and I'm speaking to myself here too, because this is a lesson I've learned in my own journey of no, it's totally cool to ask for help. No matter where you are at, nobody is ever knows everything.
Absolutely.
And you learn so much from other people. And I just think that for some reason has some sort of shame wrapped around it. And I think we kind of need to get rid of that.
Yeah. And I think for me, it just comes down to self-awareness. I get cocky at times. Yeah. And where I'm okay, I know what I'm doing. I can do this myself. I'll save some money, whatever. But I also am very aware that if I were to not have a coach, I would 100% be oh, it's just a bite of this here and there, or I was close enough, or I would just start to not be as on point as I can be.
Yeah.
And also, not for nothing, it helps keep my stress down. It helps me not have to think about it. At least from that perspective in terms of making the decisions. And I think that's something that's pretty big to be said, to minimize your stress in anything.
Hell yeah.
And I had a point last year where I got so stressed and so overwhelmed just having to make decisions all the time about nutrition that I actually had to pull back from, because I track macros, so I had to pull back from it for several months. I was I just can't even think about it right now.
Yeah.
And that's fine. And that's part of the benefit of having a coach is having somebody else able to recognize those signs and hopefully even recognize them before you.
Yeah.
Before you have a breakdown and help you get around that hurdle the best way possible.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was at last year, because if I had the breakdown, and that's when
I had it too. Don't worry. That's I had it too.
Yeah. But it was because I'm a meal prepper and I've been meal prepping for 8 years now, and I just prefer it that way because it takes the stress out of things. I don't mind eating the same things for the same all week, because again, it takes that thought process out of it. It takes the stress out of it. It takes the anxiety out of it, and that makes the process smoother for me. So that's worth it. But I was, at the point where I was creating 2 new recipes a week, and I was, putting that, sharing on social media and my newsletter and all this stuff. And that's where it's it just felt again, doing this for me and doing it for other people is just crushing. And it was just stop.
Yeah.
And that's where it was just such a good point of that's, even now with me working with my coach, it's I love doing this for other people, but it just takes the stress off of having to worry about it for you, where it's oh, okay, well, that weight's off my shoulders. So I have that more availability to help other people. It's not that you don't know what you're doing. It's just I don't know. It's healthy, but at the same time, then you're just, you almost want to be well, I'm putting myself on the back burner, but you're not. You're still
not
making
at
yourself
all.
a choice because you're choosing to get the help for it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think me trying to do it all would actually be doing myself a disservice.
Yeah.
In the long run.
Yeah.
So
100%.
Yeah.
So I love, we had similarities in that, and then similarities of we're going to quit our normal job.
Yeah.
I'm going to quit my broadcasting job. You quit your engineering job. Like, woo, health and fitness
Oh,
has
yeah.
changed my life. Like, I'm going to change other people's lives. This is going to be my new job. And it's like, then global pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah. I did not even anticipate that as an option when
Yeah,
when
me
I
neither.
decided that I
That could
wasn't
be a
going to
thing.
continue. Yeah. It was a nice little surprise.
Yeah. But, I mean, it sounds like you're doing great now, though. So.
Yeah, no, I love it. I definitely I got the lucky side of everything. And I like we kind of talked about a little bit earlier is it was a great time to kind of brush up and at least get that base level of kind of a physiology education.
Yeah.
And to continue building. And I got really lucky with the gym situation. I reached out to several, and the gym that I'm currently at got back to me really fast. And I responded, and next 2 days later I was talking with like the head trainer, and then next thing I know I'm kind of observing twice a week, and then next thing I know it's like almost a micro internship where I got the hands-on experience that I kind of was looking for to kind of help me really bridge that gap between book and practice, and then that led to a position.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so what are you feeling about personal training now? So you've been doing the actual in-person training for like a year now?
Yeah, I guess in person full time, yeah, for about a year now. And I love it. I do. It can be exhausting at times, and this is a great example this week. But yeah, I love it. I love being able to kind of see my clients kind of figure out what they're actually able to do.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a nice light bulb to watch happen from a distance as a coach. And I work with a lot of the younger athletes too, so we have that common ground of me having been in their shoes, whether they want to play in college or they just want to be better for their sport that they're currently playing. It's fun for me to help with that, really.
Yeah. So what have you experienced from making this like total job transition that you wouldn't like outside of the pandemic and everything, but like actually like training in person and being an online coach that is kind of like, oh, well, I didn't think that was going to be part of this. That's something that kind of took you by surprise.
Honestly, like I didn't really have a ton of huge expectations going in. I think the biggest thing was honestly how a certification doesn't really prepare you much at all.
Yeah.
Like it's nice to have the letters, but that hands-on experience is what is teaching kind of the most, and seeing it in practice and seeing it in person, seeing how X modification or Y modification actually does or doesn't affect your client. And I think that was something that I guess I just wasn't really even anticipating. I just assumed that, okay, hey, if I learned all my engineering from books, I guess the same would be
Yeah.
in this situation. But it's definitely not the case. And I think that's probably actually one of my favorite things about it. And that might be the ex-engineer in me just wanting to problem solve. But but yeah, that was probably the biggest thing. And just honestly, the only other thing is I didn't think that I thought it would actually kind of make me train a lot more.
Oh, yeah.
But then you realize, oh, hey, timing. Oh,
Yes.
okay, where are the hours going in the day? And that was the other hard part, but it's taken several months to kind of figure that one out. But
yeah, I'm still working on, well, then I have this concussion get in the way of
Yeah.
my own thing. But yeah, that's something too. You're like, oh, I work in a gym. Like I can just work out all the time.
that's
And
what you think.
yeah, that is not accurate. It is trying to really time that out because it's like, oh, well, hey, I can make sure, just think of previous jobs that I've had and just make sure I get up extra early or whatever. And then you can work out then. It's like, well, no, because some clients want to come in at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
So it's
Yep.
not like you're going to be working out at 4 a.m. I mean, you could.
could.
But I don't want to.
No, I've been getting up early this week, and it's like I like working out early, but getting up early to work out and then to go train,
Yeah.
train clients, I don't know if that would be the life for me.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, I'm with you 100%.
The human behavior aspect, I love that just as much, and I think that's exactly right. One of the benefits of being in person is getting to kind of figure that out.
Yeah.
Honestly, like and you prep your food, and I personally hate prepping. I am currently right now just because I am in a deficit and I want to make sure that I do what I can to stay adherent. But otherwise, like I hate it so much. It's not my favorite thing. I like cooking too much that I like to come up with recipes. I like to just kind of have different things. I don't do well with the same thing every day. And that right there is just an example of how there's two different behaviors. And I think as a coach, it's even more fun because you and I know that you can or you don't have to, but this client might think that's the only way. Or, hey, maybe there's 20 other ways. All right, here are 1,000 different ways to go about it. Let's figure out which one works best for you.
Yeah. And I think that's just something that it's hard to understand until you start living it, to know that the only right answer is what's right for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And there are so many people that are just you got to do keto, you got to do intermittent fasting, you have to do this. This is the solution. This is the right way. And it's like all of those things. And, especially doing this podcast, everybody has like their lane that they're like, this is the thing. But for me, I'm like, well, I'm not going to not keto if you're doing it and you're getting results and you really enjoy it and you're like, I want to do this the rest of my life. Like, who am I to tell you that that's the wrong choice? If that's
at
what's
the end of the
working for
day,
you.
like, at least the way I approach it is if it's sustainable and it's not having any detrimental effect. Like, let's clarify that. Like, if it is a sustainable option for you, I say go for it. Unless I start seeing red flags as a coach, then I'll probably step in and be like, maybe we reconsider and go for something else in a very gentle way.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it comes down to like, what can you sustainably continue to do? And for me, even as a coach, I really try to emphasize that I want you to still be able to enjoy your lifestyle. Mm-hmm. We might have to make changes here and there, and they don't have to be big changes. They can be small. Like if we take it's summer, so let's take that as an example. It's summer. People like to have a drink. Mm-hmm. Let's add a glass of water between drinks.
Yeah,
stuff like that. Simple little things, but I want to make sure that my clients know that they can still have and enjoy their life, and they don't feel like everything has to come to a complete stop or a complete 180.
Yeah, and we were having this discussion before we started recording too, just like how some foods just get so demonized, like bananas. That's a conversation we have here at the gym often of just like, it has higher carbs and sugars, but it's still a fruit. It came from the earth. Like it's not this awful choice. You're not going to gain all this weight from eating bananas and just telling yourself like, I'm not quote unquote allowed to have these certain foods of like, then you're going into strict diet mode and those don't work. Where I just had a conversation with a client yesterday, if she's listening to this, what's up? You know who I'm talking about, who was asking about, she's just like loves making like tortellini Alfredo. And of like, I probably can't do that. No, you can have that. Just be mindful of what you're doing. Be mindful of the portion of like, if that's something that you really love, don't get rid of it because then you're just going to hate life. You got to love life through this process. And it's, I don't know, for me doing so many restrictive diets where it's, that's just something you got to learn and live through of like, I can eat that and still lose weight and still hit my goals.
Yeah. And it's again, like we were talking about a bit earlier, I kind of look at it as a spectrum now because I didn't really know how to look at it when I was playing soccer, honestly. I knew roughly like, okay, I should probably eat these things because I need protein, I need this and this, but I never really knew how much or how little or what's too much. And so now like having to balance it and wanting to balance it, I guess is a better way to say, like with my life, I look at it a bit more of a spectrum in the sense of, all right, hey, this one is probably a little bit more optimal for me in this moment. Mm-hmm. I'm dragging. I need some energy. I can't stay awake. Maybe I should have a little bit of the carbs, just some simple carbs to give me some energy. Or let's use the wedding example that we talked about earlier. Like if you're at a wedding, like you want to celebrate, like you can have a piece of cake. Go for it. I mean, like it's not going to hurt you. It's a piece of cake. I like to look at it that way, and it's not like I'm going to have that same piece of cake right before I'm about to go on the platform and try and have a max effort lift. Like, probably don't want that in my stomach, to be honest. And so I try and look at it as like, okay, hey, what's the situation that we're in? Is this going to make me feel great in the moment? Am I going to feel bad after it physically? Like, I try and start to think about those things now, and I try and build up my clients to be able to even look at it objectively like that. And so I like the spectrum kind of approach to it. Like, this is good for now.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I think that's so helpful that you've lived through this, you
Yeah.
know, where not having that knowledge, getting a nutrition coach, losing weight yourself, understanding the process, and then falling in love with it, that, you know,
Yeah.
you changed careers. Like, that's so important to someone else to be like, no, I'm not just saying this because this is what I think you should do. Like, I've lived this and I understand how this works. And
Yeah.
I don't know, to me, that just clicks for me in so many ways of like, you know, when you want to hire somebody or get advice from somebody, of like somebody that like understands you and what you've been through, because you've also lived it. And I'm sure that all of your clients appreciate that.
I hope so. I mean, I tried my best to connect with them, whether it is a younger athlete or whether it's an adult or whatever the situation is. Like, with the athletes, I want to just make sure they're eating enough. These kids are crazy active, and they're training with me. They've got practices, stuff like that. So my whole concern is, oh my God, do you guys have enough energy? Like, please eat your food. Or if it's an adult like me, like, I get how jarring it can be to kind of come to that realization of like, oh shit, I need to, something's up and I am affected by it. I'm insecure, whatever the situation is. I've been there. Yeah. It's not fun. It really sucks.
Yeah.
And so having been through it and still being on that same journey, I think it's one of the things that helps me connect more with my clients.
Yeah. And I think that's something too of like, you know, I think that just the broad sweep, people think personal trainer, you just think that they're just fit and perfect and living life, and they're not like having those sort of real world problems. And I think that the social media has done so many great things, but has also done us a giant disservice in a lot of ways, where people that are in that space like act like they have no issues, like they didn't, you know, give in and binge eat something or felt bad or skipped workouts or whatever things that they're just like, no, I show up and I just crush every single day. So there's no excuses here. And I don't really feel like that's helpful for people.
Yeah. And I think it depends on the person too. Like, and I'll use myself as an example. Like, I like being pushed. Like, I'll take somebody kind of, come on, let's go.
Yeah.
And when I'm training. But at the same time, maybe last year at this time, mentally, about when we were talking about those breakdowns, like, if someone would have told me like, you got to be spot on with all this stuff, I would have probably had a panic attack. Like, I can't. There's no way. And part of that comes from your coach having that connection with you and being able to understand that, okay, hey, this client's having some stress. It's building. I can see it. I'm noticing these signs and working to kind of pull that back before the client breaks. But yeah, Instagram and social media and all of that, like, it's great because it does bring that awareness in a sense. But at the same time, if you fall onto the wrong side of the algorithm, you could find yourself in a spot of the industry that's misinformed and just kind of almost berating in a way.
Yeah.
Like, there are some people that are just a little too intense for me in terms of how I would approach it. But I think it comes down to self-awareness and also just understanding the situation. Like, if you're a power lifter cutting weight, that's one thing. If you're someone just trying to enjoy their life or figure out how to do nutrition when they have 3 kids and they all play 2 different sports, and when do you even have time for food? Like, that's a whole different situation. And so I think that ultimately for me, it just came down to self-awareness and what works for me, and then vice versa. What does this client respond to the best?
Yeah. What goals do you have? You are into powerlifting, anything like that?
Goal-wise, right now the focus is just on kind of cutting a little bit. Like I mentioned with the quarantines and all that, I put on a little bit of weight, and it's enough to where I personally am a little bit uncomfortable with it, and to others it probably doesn't look like much, or maybe it does. I don't know. Either way, for me, it's at a point where I wanted to kind of adjust it, but I also want to stay strong, and I'm trying to feel fit. So the last kind of year or so, I've just been in a full like strength training mode, and it's been great because I definitely feel the strongest that I've ever been.
Nice.
All my lifts have improved pretty much, like a lot. But I definitely started getting to the point where I could feel that drop in cardio and stuff like that that I just haven't been doing. I don't really like to say that you have to go and just do cardio every day and kind of stuff like that, but I was starting to feel a little bit unfit in the sense that like steps were going to add up and like stairs, and I was just like, whew, all right, let's start throwing some of this back in. And so for me right now, the goal is let's kind of lean out a little bit more. Let's kind of build that base fitness level back, and let's maintain as much of the strength as possible. And then I definitely want to do a powerlifting meet. I've never done one before, but I want to try it out and see how it works. But that won't be until about the end of the year, if there's even one that happens. So
Cool.
Yeah.
So after going from engineering to health and fitness, do you think there's any going back to engineering?
No. No. I knew that like in engineering that it was not necessarily the right thing for me. I was just good at it. And by the time I realized I was 4 years into a 5-year degree, and it didn't really make sense to switch in financially and just time-wise. So I knew that in the degree, I just really liked aviation, and I think what I really liked was traveling. So that part kind of threw me for a loop when I was pursuing my degree, but there's no going back.
Nice. So what's your favorite part of the job now?
My favorite part of the job, honestly, is, I think we talked about it a little earlier. I love just seeing things click in my client's head. And I like being able to help them, and specifically like getting stronger and realizing that they can do all of these things that either they didn't even think about or they just didn't think they could. Yeah. Whether it's a young athlete who keeps getting knocked off the ball on the field or something, and making them strong enough to kind of where they can take the hit, or just a client who wanted to lose a bunch of weight and used to be in my shoes where they were an athlete and now they just feel awful because they've kind of lost all their strength, or whether it's just someone who comes in and they want to get strong and they've never been in the gym before. To me, just watching the progress and watching everything kind of fall in place is probably my favorite thing.
So how do you help people keep their motivation up?
It really kind of varies, again, person to person, and it depends on their behavior. And for me, I like to kind of take the approach where I want them to know that when they are training with me, it's a very safe space. And I like to connect with them. I like to hear about their lives, and if I like to try and meet up with them outside of the gym, and whether it's go to some kind of event, go grab dinner. With the younger kids, it's really easy because it's let's go to their soccer game, let's go to their whatever sporting match that they're in, and then when they're in the gym, I try to encourage them in the way that they need. So some of the people need me to be on like let's go, you got this, push it a little harder. Other ones just want to be left alone. And then it's just a constant kind of checking in, like, hey, you did great today, how are we feeling? Let's make sure we do X, Y, Z. Or if they have specific questions and maybe we need another kind of face-to-face, we'll bring them in, we'll sit down, and I just want them to know that like I genuinely am in their corners, and I try and make that very clear from the beginning and go from there, really.
That's awesome. So are you accepting new clients at the gym?
Always.
Virtual and in person?
Yeah, virtual and in person. Any are welcome, and all are welcome. And I mean, I love working with people. I love helping them all out.
So for people in Cincinnati, where's your gym at? How do they get in touch?
People in Cincinnati, I work at Beat Personal Training, where we are out of Oakley and Blue Ash. I personally work out of the Oakley location. You can go to beatpersonaltraining.com and just kind of fill out a little form and request to work with me, or you can go on my Instagram at APTHUL and just DM me, and we can get you set up for your free assessment. So.
Same thing for
virtual? for virtual. Yeah,
on
just
the Instagram.
Yeah, I would just go just directly to me, and then just DM me.
Awesome. Well, it was so awesome meeting you.
Yeah, you too. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, and we'll stay blonde together through.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, she is a blessing for both of us.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
For info on health coaching and more, go to AmandaValentineBites.com.